It's Jeremy from jeremy.net. I'm a comic book artist, writer, creator, self-publisher, and I share my creative process here live with you online. If you'd like to support this channel, you can go to patreon.com/Jeremy. That's patreon.com/GERIMI. And you can get additional bonus blog posts, behind-the-scenes artwork, and an additional monthly live stream. If you'd like to read some of my comic books for free, you can go to news.jeremy.net. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comics, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. That'll forward you to my Amazon author page. So, if everything is working as it should be, then you're actually seeing me for a change. So, there's a couple of new little things that I'm trying out. Hang on. I just realized I'm in the shadows like Batman. Ah, there we go. A little bit more light. So, there's two things that I'm trying that are different. And I see Iron Rocks is already in the chat, and he's like, is that Procreate? Yes, it is. So, we've got a Procreate here. The next thing I'm working on right now, I'm still not done with the final issue of Morningstar. However, it's time for me to color those Alice in Wonderland pieces that I've been working on. So, I thought I would bring those into Procreate, and I would do little color studies. So for this, all we're going to be doing is just going through. I'm going to start by just laying in some values, some gray tones, to establish the general values of all of these, and then I'm going to go in, establish an overall color scheme for them, because I actually have not decided what whether I want them all to be exactly the same color scheme, whether I want them to be a little bit have a little bit of color variance going on, or whether I want to make each one like a complete, like one red, one blue, one green. So I'm still kind of deciding. And yeah, I see commentary on the new tech setup. So yeah, that was part of the delay this morning, was getting OBS working. Hang on, my camera still seems like it's a little bit off from where I want it to be, and I'm terrified to move it because I'm afraid it's going to mess stuff up. But it took me a while to get all of this. I tested this setup last night before starting anything. I was able to stream from my iPad. Everything was working perfectly. And I was like, all right, it works. The sound works. Everything's good. Went to bed. Woke up this morning. And the last thing I did before going to bed was making a checklist. Make sure I plug this in. Make sure this setting is set to this. Start this in this order. I did all of that. And then I got this morning, started it. And right when everything was perfect up to where it was like time to actually, click go live, and YouTube was just not getting anything from my stream at all. I tried starting and restarting OBS. I tried quitting Chrome and starting it again. None of that worked. So I just restarted my whole computer, and you know what they say, when in doubt with computer problems, reboot. So, here we go. I realize now, as I'm looking at this setup, it would have behooved me, it would have been wise to put the white space that's in the bottom corner in the corner where my face is. But this is just how I had it laid out for me to start working. I didn't really think about that in the beginning. I'm wondering if I should just adjust the camera and minimize my face a little bit more, just so we can focus on the artwork and less on me. I see Cupidon in the chat. How you doing? Thanks for dropping in. And it says, yeah, the frame rate is a bit off for your camera. I have not gone and adjusted that yet. So that's going to take some time to... I'm still messing with the tech settings, because normally when I do OBS, I'm normally just drawing from my desktop computer. This time I have it routed through my iPad, plus I've got the webcam running. So between the two, it looks like the settings are a little janky. But I appreciate the heads up. That's stuff that I'm going to tweak over time, and hopefully it will get better. And you guys let me know if the sound quality is okay, because I also don't have the camera right next to my face. So if it sounds a little bit off, if I'm a little bit, I'll try to speak up. But if it's clear enough, like how I'm talking now, then things will be good. But let me just adjust the camera a tiny bit. All right, so that should be a little bit better. Just scooted the camera down just enough to get it out of the way. So, all right, and MR says I sound like I normally do. I hope that's good. And let's get started. So, again, I always feel like it's a pain in the ass when I'm doing stuff and you guys are kind of watching me experiment and futz around as I go. Oh, one last thing I forgot. Once I realized I was going to be working on the iPad, and I did start sketching around and drawing with it, I saw how smudged my screen was getting. And I realized it's going to need one of these badasses. The two-fingered glove. For all fine digital artists. Hopefully it'll keep the smudging and smudge marks on the screen to a minimum. You guys aren't going to see that because you're getting the feed direct from the screen, but I'll notice. So, see Spectrum Man Live 1 is in the chat. It says, clear enough as is. Thank you for the confirmation. All right, so right now I'm working on a layer on Procreate, and I have it set, I believe I have it set to alpha lock. Yeah, so it's only going to make marks where there's already marks. So if I scribble out, basically it's effectively automatically masking it for me. If I draw across this, it's not going to draw in the white spaces. Because I just basically filled each of these with a color block. And Amar says, I don't show my face because then I have to shave and cut my hair. Which is funny because I did shave last night. But I don't know. I've thought about it because I know there's a lot of people I see on YouTube that have their face on there while they're working. And I personally, I don't feel like it's necessary for people to see me. It's like it's that important for me to be in front of the camera. But I do notice that people that tend to have more views have a lot of, they've got a lot of people watching them. And, I mean, they've got people that's showing their face on camera while they're doing artwork. They tend to have higher views. Let's see here. So I thought I'd give it a try and just see if it makes a difference. Oh, and speaking of things, before I get into the drawing, this is something I wanted to ask you guys. I enjoy doing the live streams, being on here, talking with you guys. But I've noticed that the growth of my channel has slowed a little bit since I used to do the time lapses. So something that I'm thinking about in the future is maybe alternating every other week. Like 1 week, it'll be a live stream with you guys on and me working and talking as usual. The next week, I won't be live, but I'll just post like a 5 to 10 minute a 5 to 10 minute time lapse with me narrating what I was working on. So it's something that I'm thinking about doing just to see if it makes a difference in terms of the growth of the channel. I mean, me personally, I really do enjoy just drawing and talking to you guys. And the reason why I started doing the live streams is because a lot of the times it was harder for me to think about what creative decisions I was making when I'm looking back in the past. Whereas right now, when I'm drawing, I just try really to just think and tell you what I'm thinking about while I'm drawing. Let's see. Amar also says you can create layer groups if you don't know by dragging a layer under another. And you know what's funny is I have I was flipping through the Procreate, not guidebook, but their the Procreate instruction manual, and I was looking at some of those different options and abilities, and that was one that I noticed. I haven't tried it out yet, but it is good to know that I can do that. But yeah, you're also going to be sitting through watching me kind of monkey around with Procreate and just figure out what what brushes I want to use, what settings I want to use, because I haven't used Procreate in a good long while. I actually bought it when I first got my regular iPad before I had the iPad Pro, but I found that without the Apple Pencil, it really was not giving me the results I wanted. So now that I've got an Apple Pencil, I'm back on this mess, and it seems to be, so the point is that there's all these little tricks and techniques in there that I have not explored yet and tried out. Let's see, the chat seems super live. Let's see here. Hey, Travis is in the chat. What's up, man? Iron Rock says sounds great. Amar's like, I am notorious for not reading manuals. I've always just jumped in and bumped around as I went. And, I am the exact opposite. I usually will sit down when I get any new manual, and when I get any new device, when I get any new piece of hardware, I like to sit and just read that manual and learn all the ins and outs before I start doing anything. But I did not do that just because I, didn't really take the time so far. I think that instead, I started by just sort of painting in watercoloring on a low opacity. But I think what I might actually do is just keep adjusting the color and actually paint fully opaque and paint in specific gray colors as I, make choices as opposed to just seeing what, instead of just messing with the opacity and slowly building it up. I go back and forth. You know what? Let's stick with the low opacity for a little while and see how it... I'm jumping around too much because part of that is me just starting with this, not having done it in a while. Iron Rocks asks if I'm excited about version 5, and I presume that's version 5 of Procreate, which I did not know that a version 5 was coming out. But that is good to know, and I'm always excited for a new update and advances in software. So hopefully it will be real dope. Let's see here. Spectrum Man Live says alternating makes sense. A lot of people don't have time for a long live stream and will immediately disengage and look for something else to watch. I personally like the live streams and time lapses. Well, you know what? I am happy to hear that because the thing the reason why I was having difficulty making the decision is because on one hand, I really genuinely enjoy the direct contact because I've been doing fewer conventions this year. And this past year I only did 2, and in 2020 right now I only have 1 scheduled. I may add 1 more convention, but these live streams in a way have kind of replaced the Compo convention experience for me. The fact of being able to talk to people about my process, what I'm working on, the art side, the writing side, talking about all of that. But on the other hand, I think to a certain degree, there is that idea, like, I don't want social media to rule my life. I think most of us agree that that's not a good thing. But I do feel like I do want to keep growing the channel. I do want the subscribership to keep growing. And I noticed that at a certain point, it kind of tapered off around like 6,000 viewers. The growth really slowed down. Now, I don't know if it's a coincidence that just happens to be around the same time that I started doing the live streams. I also don't know if it's also the fact that my channel may have been growing because I was meeting people at conventions, we had good conversations, and then they said, oh, I want to check this guy out online. So the fact that I've been doing fewer conventions may also be affecting the growth of the channel. There's a lot of known unknowns, rather, of why the channel could be slowing down in terms of growth. And to a certain degree, there's a part in which I shouldn't even care about that. There's a part to which I should say, you know what? All I want to focus on is getting better as an artist, putting my work out there, and sharing it with people. And if the channel grows, it grows. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So there's all these things that kind of run around in my mind and making these decisions about things to change in the channel and things I want to edit, different ways of doing things. But yeah, so it wasn't just a cut and dry or Machiavellian decision for me. Part of it's the fact that, I really do appreciate you guys showing up week after week. So let's see here. Amar says, yeah, it works fine on my regular iPad. I don't see a reason to get iPad Pro. Oh yeah, in terms of Procreate, well, it's funny because the iPad that I had, my regular iPad, was before the Apple Pencil was released. So that's the reason why I was not using Procreate before. It's because I had one of the I think I had the first generation iPad Air. So, no Apple Pencil. And I used other styluses, styli, I'm not sure what the plural is, and did not get great results to the point where eventually I just gave up. Like, I loved I still love, obviously because I'm using it. I love Procreate as a program, but without an Apple Pencil, it really didn't give me the results that I wanted. And I was like, well, I'll just continue working on my Cintiq. But now I've got an Apple Pencil, and I'm back up in this. So let's see here. Mighty Geek Studios in the chat. How you doing, Mighty Geek? Thanks for showing up. Amar says the only difference is the larger screen size for the iPad Pro with some performance bumps. Work on tablets still feels a little toy-like, so I generally use tablets for ideas and spend more time on detailed stuff on the laptop or desktop. And it's funny because I am probably still going to keep lettering my comics on my desktop or laptop because I really feel like I need a mouse for graphic design work. But having tried this out, I think I'm going to switch to doing my layouts and thumbnails in see, this is why I think I want to go opaque instead of just trying to build up the color. In fact, I think what I might do is just fill this in with a very dark gray and then build up the shadows the way I do when I'm doing my flats on comics. I think that I may start doing my comics digitally. In terms of layouts, pencils, I don't know if I'll do my inks digitally. I definitely, for Morningstar, because I've done all of that traditionally, I'm going to finish it with doing traditional inks. But I'm going to do my layouts and pencil cleanup. I'm going to do all of that, I think, on the iPad, and then just print out my my layouts to Bristol board and ink traditionally. But after that, I think I may experiment with doing my comics digitally and then doing like illustration work traditionally. Now, even this is an illustration piece, but this, to me, the color comps are all just more of a graphic. This is me doing, I'm doing color studies. Let's see here. What else do we see in the chat? Mighty Geek says, time-lapse videos are fun to watch because they allow you to see the creative process. El Gargoyle says, hail, bought one of your comics last week. Thank you, El Gargoyle. I really appreciate that. That's really cool. I hope you enjoy it. Thanks for supporting. Let's see. Spectrum Man Live says, gotta find your own personal balance. And Amar says, I know people like the iPad Pro for doing pro work, but it's just another toy or tool. If it adds to your works, then great, but it does not impress me so much. It really does feel like just I also have a, not a MacBook Pro, but I have a MacBook Air, and it really does feel like just the screen of a MacBook Air. But being able to draw on the screen of a MacBook Air is what I think I've wanted for ages. So it's interesting because now I've got a desktop machine, a laptop machine, and the iPad. But I feel like each one of them gives me just this right thing that I've been looking for. So it is kind of nice to be able to work with these in this manner. Now, this is what I need. Selection. Now what I want to do, No, that's not what I want. Rectangle is what I want. What I want to do is just fill this in with a darker gray and build up instead of doing it the way I was doing it. Yeah, I can just use a slider. See, there's part of me that wants to be precise, and I'm used to doing everything on a keyboard with just keystrokes, just hitting in the number and saying, all right, I'm using a 10% gray or a 20% gray. But I think I need to be a little bit less precious going forward. Now, this may be too dark of a gray. There's only one way to find out. All right. So now I'm trying to remember how to fill a selection with a color. Let's see here. Oh, more people flowing in the chat. Let's see here. Oh yeah, Amar says it's exactly what I'm referring to. The tablet is always great for prototyping, mocking up comics. I did Inktober and used 16 different programs with only slight differences between them. You know, it's good for doing that kind of thing where you can jump around. It's almost like playing with mixed media, playing with different software just to see what kind of effect it gives you, and then you decide, oh, these other 5 programs don't really do much for me, but there's a couple of things here that I'm like, this would be interesting to toss in my workflow and gives me something new and different. Let's see. Dee Dee's in the chat, said making it for a live one. And yes, I'm using Procreate. Too Many Comics is in the chat too. Thanks for showing up. And Amar says, if you have issues with OBS, Streamlabs is a bit easier and the UI is better. So I will take a look at it. See, I'll take a look at that software. So yeah, I think the main thing I need to remember, so far it seems for me with OBS, it's simply restarting my whole computer before I live stream. That seems to be the trick, because when I try stuff ahead of time and then come back in, like for whatever reason, if I like go to sleep then wake up the next morning, like I test everything and it should work, and then I try, it just craps out on me. So let's see. All right, Procreate. I do not remember how to fill a layer with a selected color. Let's see here. Oh, well, there's clear. Don't want to select the whole thing. And I don't want to transform it. I just want that selection, which I just undid. Well, it's not a big deal. I can... just undo. Alright, it didn't give me the selection back that I had before, so let's try this again. This is captivating, isn't it? Imar says, if I open the app, I can tell you quickly, but you'll have figured it out by then. You know, what's funny is I'm looking at this, and I'm actually looking at this and saying, instead of trying to figure out while you guys are watching how to do it, I'm just like, you know what? Screw it. Just fill it with the, oh, it's low opacity. Just fill it with the color I want. Oh, that's too big a brush. And that is too dark. Let's try it 20%. That's a little bit better. Now I can see. As a matter of fact, might as well just fill them all, actually. See, that's the lazy man's. Instead of actually figuring out how to properly fill it, I'm just like, big ass pencil. Just fill them all with the dark gray. All right. So my thinking in this was that now I can come in and just start by building up the whites in there, going from a darker value to a lighter value. This may not end up being color tones at all. This may just be gray tones. And my screen is a little bit smudged. All right. So now I just want to adjust the taper a little bit. Blending, smoothing, size, dynamics. Let's see here. So you can click on the, let's see here. So you can make the layer selection, then click on the layer, then click fill layer. Well, you know what? If in case I need to do it in the future, let me do a quick test just to, let's say I selected this, then go layer. Fill layer. Ooh. Alright, so if I wanted to fill this with orange, I would just do that. Alright, simple enough. Thank you, I appreciate that, Amar. It's nice to have some tech support on here while I'm working. Alright, so what was I doing? So I guess I'm just going to try and gradually build up grays. Bring the brush back down. The brush size. There we go. Just the taper a little bit. Let's see here. Amar also says you can make masks from those selections you can access later. Good to know. He says, yeah, I'm geeky like that with apps. Comes from 30 years of using too many software programs. That's why I rarely look at manuals. I look for similarities. You know what? And that's true. I think when you do enough illustration work, design work, tech work, you can start seeing with the interfaces. You're like, you can kind of say, all right, this is where these controls would be in this other program. This is like where they're likely to be in the thing I'm using now. So. All right. Make this lighter, a little bit lighter. First size down, opacity is up. Okay, there we go. Took a second for me to get anything. Maybe it's because I'm using too much of the side of the pencil. I still need to kind of refine my my settings. Because I do not want to have to press hard. I actually thought I had set this so that, but I may have set my my Apple Pencil settings so it really didn't. I thought I had set it so I didn't need much pressure at all, but it may just be with the pencil that I was using. Yeah. But I generally like to set it up when I'm working digitally so that I'm not using much pressure at all. It's just easier on your hands. At least for me, because I used to be somebody who pressed very, very hard on the surface I was drawing when I was working traditional or digital. Effect here. Let's see what happens if I turn the pressure about halfway. But yeah, it's going to take a little bit of messing around to get this to do exactly what I want. What I want is a very, very light touch. Like I barely have to touch it or just graze it along here to get what I want. And right now, you guys can't see it because you obviously can't see my hand, but for each stroke I'm making, I'm like I'm pressing down multiple times to try and get it to really react. I am tempted to just go back to the pencil that I already had, because this pencil, it's got a grain to it, but I have this pencil set so that it's super light. I just put a little bit in there and it gives me what I want. And that's kind of how I preferred it. I just don't want all the texture on this thing. See what happens if I try to use an HB pencil. Nope, still too much grain. Yeah, I have no idea why this particular brush that I'm using right now requires so much. Yes, I don't know. For some reason now it's working okay. All right. This is more of what I want. Well, I see. It's just making me build it up a little bit. So let's see. Amar. All right, let me catch up and see what you're talking about here. Let's see here. Oh. So he says, that's why I'm rarely not in terms of using different software and not looking at manuals. He says that's why I'm rarely impressed not after using so many applications that did the same thing. He said after your stream, I'll work on my next 5 scripts for my web series. So I'm saving the last 2 weeks of the year of my vacation time to work on the next 14 scripts for one of my comic universes. That's pretty ambitious. I'm glad to hear it, man. He says, I don't know if I shared any pages with you, but it's for the universe I had mentioned with you before. I think you did send me a couple of pages for me to look at. And we were just talking about style and process and influence and that kind of thing. And he said, he also says, once I get done, I'm sure you will like it, but I'm taking a different approach. But my protagonists, Snow and Antihero Lilith. Oh, okay, cool. Bring a little bit of Lilith in there, you know. Let's see here. It says, right now I'm doing a sculpt in Blender. Hope it turns out nice. I want to do a sculpt of Snow as well. Cool, man. That sounds like you got a lot of awesome projects on all the burners. One of the things that I've been saying for the longest time, and I really need to start doing, is I really need to start writing every day. I need to make it part of my my daily creative process and practice. That way, when I finish a series, what it's been in the past is I'll finish a series and I go into a period where I'm writing for a few months and I need to get caught up in terms of drawing again. Like, I fall out of my drawing practice while I'm spending a lot of time writing, and it's like I have to relearn how to write every time. And I realized that's just a waste of time. What I really need to do is just write for like 20 or 30 minutes every day, and then I'm always in the habit. But it's okay that I don't get a lot done, because over time I'll eventually get, one whole comic book series or one graphic novel written. Then I can just move on to whatever the next graphic novel I want to do is, and the next graphic novel after that. But yet I'm still drawing all the time. So that's what I would really like to do in the coming months and in the coming years. Just make that part of my permanent practice, is just always writing as well as drawing. I never have to do the start, stop, and relearn and remember what I was writing and my ways of building up character and plot and all the various processes that go into developing a story. Just having all of those things in my mind in the forefront as I work. Let's see here. I really feel like I'm just being too careful and precious with this thing. Because right now, all I wanted to do is just block in gray tones. And I thought I'd be able to get right to coloring all of them. So if you guys don't mind, I'm going to draw for a little bit while I'm not necessarily... I'm going to check continue to check the chat, but I want to sit here for a second and kind of get my head together about this piece, and figure out what exactly I need to do with it, because value-wise, what I intended was to have this piece sort of light at the bottom and getting progressively darker as you're disappearing up into the trees. And I kind of wanted the Cheshire Cat to be sort of silhouetted. I really need to sit down and play with the Procreate brushes, because I know that they can give me a lot of control and variance. But it is driving me crazy that I don't have the super light touch on this that I want to have. I almost wish that I had a third camera. Well, I mean, I do have the camera up here, but that you can see me. But I wish you could see my hand just so you could see. You know what the problem is? Even if you can see my hand going over the line over and over again, you can't see that I'm like, at one point, like right now, I'm just scribbling over the eye, and you can see it slowly building up. But maybe that's what it is. It just slowly builds up. All right, well, then I guess I just need to set it to build up faster. But I had previously had that one brush I was using set up that it gave me just what I needed. That the charcoal pencil brush that I was using. Like I've mainly been sketching with that. So let's see here. Amar says, yeah, if I get lucky and finish all 19 of these scripts and half of them by January 1st, I would have done more than most indies. Yes, that's very, very true. That's pretty impressive. So this is my first year really trying to write. It may not be the best, but if I can complete these scripts, I would have done over 20 comic scripts in 1 year, 15 being comic book related. And yeah, and that's, the thing about it not being their best, I still feel like I am learning how to write. So with each script I develop, I learn new things. I find mistakes that I made. I don't want to say I reinvent my process, but I'm constantly tweaking and adjusting to try and get my writing where I want it to be. And I feel like the process that you're doing makes sense to me. The only difference for me is that I'm trying to sort of, instead of sitting down taking a month to do all of that writing, because I really fall out of my writing process. It's almost like I forget how to write if I stop doing it for several months. I'm trying to change so that going forward, I'm just writing a little bit every day from now on. Much like, I've realized it works for drawing, shit should work for writing. I mean, that's what most writers tell me anyways. You got to write every day. Let's see. Amar says, suggestion. You can create a swatch list on another layer so you can have to base colors mapped out. Yes, that is actually a good idea. It's just create a layer and drop colors on there. I'm not even starting with that only because I'm really just messing with the value, but I think when I do get into properly painting colors, then I'm going to do that, like just have like a layer that's like a palette layer that I'm just going to drop dabs of color on and just have those to pull from. And Dee Dee says turn the opacity down for lighter or up for darker in terms of Procreate. Well, the reason why when I first started this piece, it started getting very watercolory with me using different opacities. So what I wanted to do for this was, instead of opacities, I just want to select a color, and then I'm intentionally painting opaque as if I were working with like acrylic or gouache. And there is a little bit of glazing in this, like you can see as I'm going over this this gray here that's slowly lightening up. But when I first started doing this piece, I was not particularly happy after I started blocking in the darker values. I started by going from a lighter gray with everything to a darker gray. And part of the way through, I was like, this just isn't giving me the strong silhouette that I have. And I think that's the main thing, is I want to start with a strong silhouette. But also, I go back and forth. I'm not saying that your suggestion isn't a good one. I think that it is, but I haven't mastered Procreate enough yet, or I know there's a certain point when you use a program for a while and you can predict exactly what it's going to do when you do it with each stroke, and you really feel like you've got command of that thing. And I feel like for Procreate, I'm still kind of getting my wheels, my Procreate sea legs under me. And because of that, I find that at the moment, it's easier instead of me painting on different opacities to just, and plus the other thing is that if I use the color picker, well, the color picker will give me sometimes when you use a color picker, you're using a color, but if you're working with different opacities, you're getting a color that's actually maybe it doesn't really apply with the gray tones right now, but you can be laying down colors when you're actually working in color, and you might have a blue, but it's maybe got a little bit of a red underneath it that's affecting the color because it's on a transparency. And then you get these multiple colors, and when you select it, you select that color, but then you're like, well, wait, how? You have to start doing a little bit of mental color math to tweak and get the colors the way you want. At least I do. And part of that is because, again, I am not the best colorist. And in a way, doing these pieces is just a chance for me to experiment and improve my sense of color, improve my sense of value. The main thing is that it's not necessarily that I can't lower the I know that I can lower the opacity on this. My main thing is what I really want is not necessarily to have the opacity higher or lower. What I really want is tweaking the settings in the Apple Pencil so that with a very delicate stroke, it'll lay down more color than it's laying right now. Because right now, for instance, if I go up here so you can see, if I do a really light stroke, right now, like right in the middle of the screen, I'm doing a light stroke, and it's slowly fading up. I've been doing it just sitting there consistently doing it, and it wasn't giving me enough. And what I really like is to be able to use a very gentle touch on the screen to get light. I mean, to get value. And I can just grab here. I almost never use the smudge tool. Whoops, that's got to be huge. Brush size, bring that down. Smudge this a little bit. The smudge tool is too grainy. Ooh. That is just too big. Let's bring that down a little bit. Switch to an oil painting brush. Well, that's weird. I figure I should be able to smudge these two together. Oof. See, that's the thing. I like to be able to just very gently nudge these things instead of having to really bear down on the screen. Let's see here. Going back to the chat there. Oh, Amar says you can probably turn on the cursor so that at least it shows. You can also create your own custom brushes as well. She said, Dee says, listen to Amar, I'm just guessing at your lighter, darker issue. No, you made good comments. It's more of me figuring out how to both tweak the interface and tweaking the Apple Pencil settings. Because, again, I've used Procreate before and really liked it, but I have not, I haven't worked with the Apple Pencil. And it's a matter of just figuring out how to get the settings so that it does exactly what I want, my hand wants it to do. Trying to customize it to my particular touch, because some people have a very heavy hand and they need to bear down. So let's see here. And Amar says, I took off from drawing the comic this year. I wanted to get that writing flow going. He says the easiest way to do that is flat fill, then erase what you don't want to see using a mask, just like you would with a layer mask in most programs. You know, Photoshop, Affinity, such. That's me adding the Photoshop Affinity. But yeah. Indeed, he says, listening and learning. You can also paint using a clipping mask in Procreate as well. These are all things. See, this is the stuff that I'm probably going to sit down with the manual and go deeper and do a deeper dive as opposed to just digging around. But you're a man who's mastered many an application, so I can see how you're just like, oh no, it does this, it does that. Hunt and peck. I was trying the process a little bit with Procreate, where I was only going to look up things in the manual that I specifically needed. Like if there's something I was having trouble with, let me just go in and look at that. But then as I kept seeing that there were all these little tools and things I had never bothered to learn the first time I opened it, I really wanted to go back and say, let me just dig into this program and see what it can and can't do. What are the things that get me excited about it? All the balloons that are floating in the background, I'm probably going to come back in and paint value into there. You know, I realize now that the biggest mistake I made when I started this was I didn't just start with like a big black and white silhouette statement for all of these. That's what I should have done. Because, I mean, I did that. I do actually have thumbnails I did in ink when I... Amar says, there is no do. There's only do. There is do or do not. There is no try. Famous Yodas. Which I have not seen The Mandalorian yet because we don't have Disney Plus. But I am looking forward to watching it at some point. I'm not sure when, because I'm not sure. Right now, there isn't really any plans for my wife and I to get Disney Plus, because it's like we've already got, you know, cable, we've got Netflix, we've got Hulu, and there's already so much stuff to watch. And everyone says The Mandalorian is awesome. I don't doubt it, but I'm just like, there's not enough hours in the day, and on top of that, like, time that's spent watching stuff is time that could be spent making stuff, writing and drawing. That's the other thing. I'm sure Jon Favreau is busy busting his ass making whatever his next movie is going to be, or prepping for whatever the following season of The Mandalorian is. He's not sitting around watching just a whole bunch of other shows. Well, he probably needs a break after, you know, putting together such a series, but such an acclaimed series. But I imagine he's always got his eyes on the prize in his next project, and that's probably how I should be as well. So let's see here. You know what? Let me just zoom out. So we've got that big silhouette. Let me just go over here to these other ones. And this is really what I should do, is I should start off with just a bold silhouette. And then come in and refine all of these. And to be honest, this gray that I'm putting in here, this could probably be a higher key gray. Go something like that. Still a nice gray, but kind of a high key. Move this to more of a silhouette-y black and white. See, that's the thing. I'm being too precious right now. I gotta get in here. Just go at this thing. Now let's say I go back to Now see, here's the thing I'm wondering. Amar, is there an eyedropper? Because what I want is to just pick this gray. Let's see what's in classic. Let's see here. Amar says, occasionally I can bring out my Yoda skills. Dee says, LOL. Amar says, hopefully one day we'll be able to share the rest of that, share that with the rest of the world. He says, I agree. I might get it, meaning Disney Plus, for like 2 days so I can binge watch it and cancel. I'm thinking of doing that for HBO's Watchmen as well. And, HBO's Watchmen is one that I've been, that I have been watching. And I really love that. That sucked me in. And that's been really cool. So I'm digging Watchmen, but we already had HBO, so. Amar says just outline and fill, or make a mask from the outline and fill. He says hopefully I'm not being chatty. No, I don't mind. That's one of the reasons why I do the live stream, is because having you guys on here to talk with while I'm while I'm working. So let's see here. Okay, so click on the circle icon. Now here's the question I'm having. All right. The rounded rectangle. So here's the thing. So okay, this is what I'm asking, Amar. So I click the icon to bring up the color picker. Now when I do that, do I click on one of these and then pick the color that I want? Do I click on, I see the rounded color, the rounded rectangles opposite of the word's color in the upper right hand corner, and I'm clicking on that and it's not. That's the thing I wonder, is whether I get like a little eyedropper where I can just come in and select the color I want. Is it, let's see. It's between the brush sliders and the opacity sliders. Oh, between the brush slider and the oh, is that what this is? Oh, okay. Thank you. Oops, damn it. There we go. So what I wanted to do was switch back now and use that gray from the other one. So this is what I'm talking about. I'm still learning my way through this software. Let me bring this brush size up. Yeah, it's a little too much. See, this is what's weird. Right now I am pressing in this little corner, just trying to round out the top, and it's not giving me what I want. It'll let me as I'm painting down here in these layers. It's letting me do this all day long, but me trying to yeah, that's the thing. Some places the color is just inconsistent in terms of what it lets me select and pick. Yeah, it's going to take me some time to get the hang of Procreate. And I always feel bad when you guys are watching me suffer through doing something that I'm like, this isn't working right. Because, I mean, I feel like we're here hanging out and sharing work and talking about process. But at the same time, I like to think that there's the things I am good at, that I'm actually teaching something by sharing those. But you know what? It's okay for sometimes to see that I'm certainly not the emperor. I was going to say the emperor wears no clothes, but I am certainly not an illustration emperor by any means regardless. whatever I am, sometimes I'm artistically naked and just fumbling in the dark. So I'm sharing that part of the process with you guys too, for better or for worse. But yeah, basically I need to go through and do grayscale studies for each of these pieces. It's going to be more than just silhouettes. And, I'll continue to share those on my Patreon. I'll continue to share the works in progress on Twitter and Instagram as well. But, let's see here. Some more comments in the chat. Just to let you guys know, I'm going to go through the last couple of comments in the chat and then sign off. I'm going to take a short break to have a bite to eat. And then for those that are Patreon subscribers, I'm going to start up my Patreon exclusive live stream. So on that one, we're going to be continuing the art book study group, doing studies from... doing studies from Walt Reed's The Figure, which I figure... I was looking for the book. I'm like, well, if I can't find it, I'm not going to be doing studies from anything. But I've been doing studies from that book as part of the Patreon exclusive. So it's called the Art Book Study Group. Those of you guys that are on Patreon, that's probably going to be in about an hour. I'm going to take a break, have a bite to eat, and then get back on the Patreon live stream. But for the last couple of comments here on the chat, and then we'll wrap it up. Let's see here, and Amar, thank you so much for all the Procreate tips. I do appreciate you being here live and saying try this control, not that control, and adjust this. That really does help a lot. So thank you, man. El Gargoyle says, every time I hear Regina King talk, I can't stop thinking of Riley and Huey. I heard they're bringing Boondocks back. I haven't looked to see when they're airing it or whether it's already aired yet, but I hadn't even thought about that, but that's actually pretty funny. Now I'm going to be thinking about when I watch it too. But thank you. So, let's see. And Amar says, in terms of Procreate, that it remembers the color sections as well. The color picker. Dee Dee says, I think it is awesome to learn on the fly and see what to do and not do. Well, I'm glad you do, because you're going to be getting a lot of that over probably this next year, because I'm... honestly, trying to make comics on Procreate, that's going to be a whole new thing, doing digital comics. I may end up mixing and dabbing between Procreate and Affinity Photo and Affinity Designer for iPad as well. But we'll see. It's going to be a whole process. And you guys get to go along for the ride. El Gargoyle says, it's okay. You're here to inspire us. Tribulation is a part of our journey with you. You know what? That... I appreciate it. I feel the love. Ian Rock says, I used Procreate a little and not as much now, but I'm really happy to know I have it there. It is nice to have in the back pocket. So Dee Dee says, it was nice to catch you live. Have a great day, guys. You know what? I'm really glad you stopped by, and I'm glad you hung out. I appreciate your comments and you joining us and hanging out. Mr. Destiny asks, how long have you been drawing for? And what age did you... And so far, what age did you started? I've been drawing probably since I was... I've been drawing since I was like 6 or 7 years old. I didn't start taking it seriously until probably about high school, when I was about, probably around 13, 14. Then I started taking art classes, and I actually took... My class had... AP studio art, and the point of that class is much where you take AP and honors classes and you get college credit. The AP studio art classes, you do get college credit for it, but the class is to build a portfolio for whatever art school you're going to go to. So I already had a portfolio by the time I was ready to graduate high school to apply to college. So yeah, I've been drawing for most of my life, but I really feel like the big turning point was probably about over 10 years ago. Now I started taking figure drawing classes regularly, and that's why I show so much figure drawing work on my YouTube channel, is because I'm still learning, I'm still growing, and I'm still working on improving my craft. But I got to about 30 years old, and one day I just looked up and I'm like, oh my God, I really don't know how to draw. I can make shapes and I can make pictures, but in terms of actually having draftsmanship, understanding anatomy, volume, perspective, I really kind of did a hard reboot on my entire creative process, and now continuing to learn and study is just an ongoing part of what I do on a daily and weekly basis. That's a really good question. Thanks for asking. Let's see here. Amar says, I used it, I guess we're talking back to Procreate. Says, I used it to sketch on that Autodesk sketchbook before I go to bed. It said, they are supposed to bring it back. I think we're talking about Boondocks. We're jumping around to a lot of topics here, which happens in the chat sometimes. And El Gargoyle says, how? Without John Witherspoon, you can't have Boondocks without him or Aaron Magruder. And Amar says, I know it would be a carbon copy of itself. I thought, this may be me speaking out of turn, but I thought I had read an article that Aaron Magruder was involved in the Boondocks reboot. So, I figure whatever they're going to do there, I mean, if John Witherspoon isn't in it, that's a loss, and I don't know how they're going to get around that. But Aaron Magruder, I think, is supposed to be involved in spearheading it. So I may go look online for some articles to read more, find out more about it, see what's up with that. But that's all. It's just an article that I remember reading somewhere in the past 6 months of them talking about working on rebooting Boondocks. Not rebooting it, but bringing it back. So, okay. We've talked quite a bit. I haven't drawn that much. You know what? You guys let me know in the future if you want me to spend more time drawing and less time talking. I mean, again, you'll get the live stream. I mean, if I do go back to walking in some time lapses. In fact, I think next week, instead of a live stream, we'll do a time lapse. So we'll start working in a little bit of the back and forth, because I do feel like I spend so much time talking and not as much time drawing, and I want to make sure that you guys, if you enjoy seeing me work and the drawing part, that you're getting enough of that. As for now, if you'd like to support this channel, support my creative process, and get additional, behind-the-scenes blog posts, and like I said, later today I'm going to be broadcasting my Patron exclusive live stream. That's going to be on Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jeremy. That's Gerimi. If you'd like to read some of my comic books for free, you can go to news.jeremy.net. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comics, go to amazon.jeremy.net. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I really appreciate it. That's it for now. Go be creative.